besides training, what do you feel are some of the most important, impactful things about optical that we need to know?
It's interesting when I talk to opticians specifically, or frame stylists, whatever your role is in that dispensary, that I don't feel like we're really taught to understand the impact on people's lives that we have in optical. I know everybody plays a specific part in the patient experience, but I truly believe what we do in optical specifically is so unique and so impactful, in that we are the reason people look the way they do. We're the reason that people see the way they do. The doctor can do a great prescription. The tech can do a great workup. They never would have got there if the front desk didn't get them in the door anyway, right? So everybody's got their part. But then when we get to optical, if I don't know how to adjust frames properly, you're not going to see the same out of them. Let alone, we get those patients that come in that tell us all the time, and my opticians out there will understand and appreciate this. When we get those patients that come in and say things like, "Oh, I hate frame shopping. I hate looking for frames. This is terrible." I love those patients because I got to flip their opinion on it, and I tried to make it as fun as possible, with the way we talk about frames. But, with glasses specifically, with all of that eyewear conversation, we get to be that end point, that first point when a kid gets to see clearly for the first time. You get to see their face light up and their parents' reaction when they get to see that interaction clearly for the first time in their life, right? When I've sat next to somebody on a plane that is convinced that they don't have reading in their progressive lenses because of how they're fit. I pull them off their face mid-flight, adjust them, put them back on their face, and in front of the whole plane, they exclaim, "Oh my God, I have reading in my glasses." Like, we get to change people's lives. And I don't care how dramatic that sounds, that's what we get to do. And if that's not the way you view optical, you probably shouldn't be doing it, because we are the reason people look the way they do. The glasses on your face change how confident you may or may not be. There's certain eyewear that I put on that I look about 10 times my age, even though some days I feel it. All of that is a huge impact on people's lives. Whether we're talking about kids all the way to whatever age in adulthood you want to, if you don't like the eyewear that's on your face, you're less likely to wear it. Or it changes, your posture, or the way you hold yourself, or the way you communicate. So the impact we can have on people's lives should be recognized and understood, because it changes the way we do the job. It changes the way we talk about it, right? Had I never experienced those things, I probably wouldn't be the way that I am now, and as crazy as I am about all of this now. But I am, and that's why, because I've had the pleasure of seeing these things happen over and over again throughout my career, and it fills your heart. It makes you feel good about what you do. It gives us a purpose, and I think ultimately that's what a lot of us are searching for, is to feel like we have a purpose. And I think it's a pretty huge purpose.
Yeah, having a purpose, it's all so important. And, that's why I wanted to have the opportunity for you and I to talk about our dispensary management program, because all of us here at Williams Group, have this phenomenal passion and feeling of a purpose for what we do and how we change people's lives. I mean, I've been there. I've seen that child when they put on the glasses and they saw the world for the first time. I mean, it's just an amazing experience. So, yeah. So I love that. Thank you. So you also brought up, how we impact people's lives and the way they feel about themselves. So why do you have such a strong opinion about frames and brands?
I think it's because throughout, the past 4 generations that have come up and come through the world, everybody appreciates being an individual more, right? Everybody wants to stand out a little bit. So what I notice when I go into as many practices as I've been into in the past 4 years, and even before that, right? For my entire career, the number of practices I've been into, I feel like I just see the same stuff everywhere I go. I feel like the way people talk about frames doesn't really get people excited, right? When I have a frame board, and if you, especially from the patient's perspective, if you stand back 10 feet from any frame board and you look and you can't legitimately tell me that there's a difference in those frames, why do you have them? Why do you have more than one brand of fully rimless or drill mount glasses? I don't understand. Why do you have more than one Geek Chic line? Because now you're selling competing brand strategies, and all that's doing is costing the practice money And if nothing else matters to you, the fact that your patient is just really underwhelmed, right? There are so many amazing brands out there that are pretty easy to find. And I love looking for that. You know that about me. I love finding out these independent lines or these lines that are truly different. My favorite brands that I wear, including the one on my face, are all independent lines that some people don't even know about. But when I get to talk about these frame lines, I get to tell the story of why these frame lines even exist and how my patient might connect to them, right? So if I was talking to you, I'd probably refer to your love of all things art, and I would talk to you about certain frame lines that are inspired by pieces of art or that are designed by artists, or simply one piece of art that designs an entire color palette, because that's something that will excite you and make you want that frame specifically. And that's a very different way to have that conversation versus, I don't know, Robin, did you want blue or black? Did you want metal or plastic? Like, it's boring. Why wouldn't we want to have fun with what we do? For as many hours a day as we do this, for as many people as we talk to, why, for God's sake, would we not want to enjoy what the heck we're doing here? And if we're not telling the story, if we're not even excited about the eyewear, the frame lines that are on our boards, why are we doing it? I hear patients anywhere I go say, "Oh, you guys just don't have anything I like." And in practice's minds, they all think, well, I guess we'll buy 50 more frames. What other frames can we buy? And they're just loading and overloading the patient's senses with the same stuff when there's so much out there that can be so amazing. So, I truly believe that practices need to learn the frame stories behind the frames that are on their boards and make sure they align with what their brand is, because then it matches more, right? It matches. If your brand is accepted by your patients, then they have those same values and beliefs. Why wouldn't you want the product in your practice to be the same way, so that we're all speaking the same language and we're more excited to talk about the frame lines we want? There's frame lines out there if you want an entirely Christian-based frame line. There's frame lines that donate one for every one that a patient purchases, right? There's ones that are made out of vinyl records, which are my favorites, obviously. There's ones made out of recycled materials, right? We can go on and on about the different things, but find the brand that finally speaks something to who you are as a practice and a brand. And then use those brands in your practice. And then you truly have something different to say to your patient. And that's really what we need to do in optometry as a whole and eye care as a whole, is we have to differentiate ourselves. And if we're not doing that, patients don't really have a reason to stay with us or come to us or even come back to us, for that matter. Because if I go down the street, I'm going to find the same frames. And we all know that because we've all been in practice. They're like, oh, well, I was down at so-and-so's office, and they have the same frame in a different color. Why do I even carry that frame then? Like, there's so many options out there. So I think between that and having the right knowledge about lenses, it's just something that we need to look at from a different perspective. And if nothing else, speak about very differently to our patients if we want them to care. And if we don't want them to care, if we don't care, then I don't know the point of the conversation anyway.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yes, I know you would draw me in immediately if you took me to a selection of frames that had to do with art. I love art in every facet, and I do have to give a shout out to vinyl.
I've got frames I can tell you right now.
I know you do. I know you do. And I have to give a shout out to vinyl, because that was in the ability to be so passionate and knowing the story behind the frame and the company and what they do. I mean, vinyl, that's actually made out of vinyl records, right? And I know that's your favorite.
Yeah, and there's multiple brands that do it, and they all have a little bit different spin on their story of why they do it. Whether you're talking about Specs Wax out of San Diego or whether you're talking about Vinylize out of Budapest, they do two very different models, and they're not even the only ones. But for somebody that collects vinyl and loves all things music, why wouldn't you want to tell me that story? And guess what? I will always spend $400 or $500 on a frame if that's something I'm passionate about, because I guarantee you I spend more on records. So, we can say the same thing about art. We can say, a lot of us can say the same thing about the things that we're passionate about in our lives. So if you connect with those things and then find some brand stories of some frame lines that legitimately stand for those same things, you're going to have a very different conversation, a heck of a lot more enjoyable for your patients. And we actually enjoy what we do more in Optical, and we get to have those conversations.
Absolutely. Thank you.